This is Spain, the fourth largest country in Europe with a population of 50 million, where about 70% of the area is completely empty. 90% of Spain's population lives in Madrid and the highlighted coastal areas, while the central yellow highlighted area is almost deserted. This means that 450 million people live in just 30% of Spain's land. However, Spain is a country with an amazing climate and geography. It has beaches, dense forests, mountains and deserts. Despite this, people are strangely scattered, and it's not as if this yellow highlighted area has always been empty. In fact, just a few years ago, many people lived there. But now, if you go to the central and northern parts of Spain, you will find entire villages with empty houses and buildings, which are now ruins. But why is this so? Spain's unusual population pattern is closely tied to its history, politics, geography, and several social factors. In today's video, we will explore some aspects of Spain that you may never have heard of before. Let's go back thousands of years when the entire Iberian Peninsula was under Roman Empire control and was known as Hispania. At that time, the Roman Empire stretched from northern Africa and Europe to the entire Middle East. Managing such a vast empire was difficult and costly for the Roman rulers. That's why they decided to divide the empire into two parts. The eastern part became the Byzantine Empire, and the western part became the Western Roman Empire. However, after this division, the power of the Roman Empire began to decline. Germanic tribes in Western Europe started attacking the Western Roman Empire, weakening it. And finally, in the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. The Iberian Peninsula came under the control of a Germanic tribe, the Visigoths, who ruled the region for 250 years. But their rule was short-lived, as the emerging Muslim empire from the Arab world was soon going to take control of this area. In the 8th century, the Muslim empire, at its peak under the Umayyad Caliphate, stretched from northern India to the Middle East and North Africa. To expand its territory further, in 711 AD, the Muslim army, led by Tariq bin Ziyad, attacked Spain and took control of the entire region. The name Hispania was changed to Al-Andalus. The Muslims ruled Spain for the next 800 years, during which time there were significant developments in science, philosophy, and architecture. However, the Muslim empire constantly faced Christian resistance, which is referred to as the Reconquista. These were the battles fought by Christian kingdoms to drive Muslims out of Spain, and by the end of the 14th century, the Christian armies defeated the Muslims in the Battle of Granada. This marked the end of Muslim rule and the beginning of Spain's emergence as a colonial superpower. By the early 19th century, the Spanish Empire spanned almost the entire American continent, from California to Argentina, and even controlled the Philippines in Asia. However, gradually the Spanish Empire started to collapse, and by 1900, its vast territory of 5 million square miles was reduced to just 195,000 square miles. In 1930, Spain plunged into a brutal civil war, which ended in 1939 when General Francisco Franco's nationalist forces emerged victorious. Franco became the ruler of Spain for the next 30 years, a period considered the darkest chapter in modern Spanish history. During this civil war, around 500,000 people were killed, and the Spanish economy suffered greatly. Franco's protectionist policies made the situation worse. At that time, more than half of Spain's population lived in rural areas, mostly engaged in agriculture. To protect local industries, Franco closed Spain's borders and halted imports, effectively cutting Spain off from international trade. Due to the border closures, farmers didn't have access to new machinery, pesticides or technology to increase their production. On top of that, the government strictly controlled prices. As a result, the agricultural industry started to collapse, and many people left rural areas to move to cities or even other countries. By the end of the 1950s, Franco began to realize the failure of his policies and slowly started opening the borders for international trade. This marked the beginning of Spain's economic miracle. With the opening of trade, two things happened. First, Spain started trading with France, Germany, and the UK, which boosted economic activity. Second, all this economic activity was concentrated in Spain's major cities. As companies moved to urban areas, jobs were created, and people started migrating to these cities. This led to a trend where, after the collapse of the agricultural industry, many people moved away from rural areas, especially the central parts, and started settling in coastal cities. So while history and political decisions are one reason for Spain's population pattern, geography plays another major role. Spain is very mountainous, so much so that it's the second most mountainous country in Europe. It has 6 mountain ranges: the Betic Range in the south, the Iberian and Central Ranges in the center, the Cantabrian and Leon Ranges in the north, and the Pyrenees mountain range in the northeast, along the border with France and Andorra. The northern side of Spain is lush and green, while the southern side has deserts where the temperature is the highest in all of Europe. Recently, climate change has had a severe impact on Spain. According to the United Nations, 74% of Spain is desertifying, and as a result, 18% of the land might permanently turn into desert. In such conditions, the lack of proper water facilities in rural areas has forced many people to leave these areas and move to cities. If we look at the most sparsely populated region in Spain, it's the northern area called Spanish Lapland, or Serrania Celtiberica, which is even larger than countries like Denmark and Croatia. The main reason for this low population density is the mountainous terrain, which makes construction and building railway networks expensive and difficult. Because of this, proper infrastructure hasn't been developed, making the area very backward even in the 21st century. Similarly, just 100 kilometers from Madrid, there's a town named Sartan, where many people once lived, but today it's becoming a ghost town with only about 50 people left. This depopulation is not only due to geography, but also due to the lack of infrastructure and another big problem, the low fertility rate. Spain has the lowest fertility rate in all of Europe, and over the last 5 years, Spain has seen more deaths than births. The fertility rate has been steadily declining for the past 50 years. The biggest reason for this is people choosing to remain single and unstable employment opportunities. People take so long to stabilize their financial situation that they miss the window for starting a family. In Spain, 10% of women have their first child at the age of 40, which explains the average birth rate of 1.19 children per woman. According to the UN, to sustain a population, a country needs at least 2 children per woman. According to statistics, if Spain's birth rate doesn't reach 2, by 2040, the country will experience negative population growth and will need at least 6 to 7 million immigrants to maintain its population. So, one major reason for this depopulation in Spain's rural areas is the low birth rate, and the Spanish government will need to offer benefits and grants to couples and improve rural infrastructure if it wants to reverse this trend. Otherwise, Spain's population pattern will continue to worsen, as the new generation isn't being born, and the existing population is increasingly migrating to other countries in search of a better quality of life. Who knows what the future holds for Spain, once a dominant colonial empire, in the coming years? These are the sources we consulted for this video. We encourage you to share your suggestions and feedback in the comments. Your comments motivate us and guide us in the right direction. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video with another interesting topic.